What's going on, everyone? James Hancock here. Hope y'all are having a great weekend. I'm a few days late on this one, but I'm back to review the new animated anthology film Love, Death, and Robots. This film is available on Netflix and is the brainchild of directors David Fincher and Tim Miller. And as soon as I saw their names attached to the project, I was curious, but after watching the absolutely wild trailer and learning that the film was intended for mature audiences only, I knew that this was going to be right up my alley and most likely something very special. Tim Miller and David Fincher have been working on this project since 2008, when it was conceived as a new heavy metal film. The original heavy metal film was released in 1981 and is arguably the most entertaining animated film ever made. The South Park homage to it was also pretty goddamn good. But I think I've seen the original heavy metal more than any other animated film ever made, often in states of altered consciousness, and it is safe to say that it is unlike any other animated film. It takes its inspiration and a lot of specific stories from the wild, uninhibited magazines Heavy Metal and the original Metal Hurlant. And the eventual film became this anthology of wild, sexual, science fiction, comedy, and fantasy stories, all loosely connected by this framing device involving an artifact called the Loc-Nar. If you haven't seen it, stop whatever you're doing and watch it right now. That's an order. In any event, David Fincher and Tim Miller tried and failed for years to get their own heavy metal film going until they eventually lost the rights to Robert Rodriguez, who has also failed to get it up and running. But Fincher and Miller weren't willing to give up on their dream of making an animated anthology, so they reconceived it as Love, Death, and Robots, and luckily found a home at Netflix. Now, between this film and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Netflix is rapidly becoming a home for anthology films that rank among some of the best anthology films ever made. In an interview that I read on IGN, Miller and Fincher described how they were determined to make every short film in this collection absolutely fantastic. If you've ever been to a film festival and seen a program of short films or seen other anthologies, you'll understand how incredibly difficult it is to try and guarantee a certain level of quality across an entire program. The problem with watching a lot of shorts in a row is how the audience is constantly forced to reset emotionally in between the narratives. Knowing this in advance, I ended up watching this anthology in 3 separate sittings, primarily just so I could savor the experience and not look at it like a chore. It also helps tremendously that most of these shorts are either insanely violent, really funny, or enticingly erotic, which makes it very easy to look forward to whatever might be coming next. Most anthology films usually have a few little gems and a lot of stinkers, and those odds really start working against you if you're rolling the dice with 17 films, as is the case with Love, Death, and Robots. And nearly all of these 17 films were made by different directors, although I should say that 15 of them were written by Philip Gillat, using existing short stories as a jumping off point. But I'm thrilled and relieved to report that most of the shorts in this collection are incredible, and I'd even go further by saying that I think a few of them are downright brilliant. But one criticism to the overall approach to this anthology is how they deliberately chose not to use a framing device that would connect all the films together into a greater whole. Most beloved anthologies like Heavy Metal or Black Sabbath or Creepshow have some sort of device that creates a thread between the entire experience, but it seems as if in the case of this movie, they're trying to embrace the fact that so many viewers these days love short-form content. But if these shorts are any indication of the level of talent out there, I have to say that the future of animation is incredibly bright. I'd love to see most of these filmmakers go out and make some feature films, or at a bare minimum, some great cinematics for video games. Some of these shorts feel like they could be a really great intro to an ultra-violent, photorealistic first-person shooter or RPG, but then the other shorts employ styles that are wildly original, unlike anything I've ever seen before, and something tells me that college kids are going to love sitting back and killing some brain cells while watching these shorts on a loop. So while I'm not yet ready to declare this film the heavy metal of the 21st century, I seriously admire the achievement, and I do want to call attention to a few of the shorts that really jumped out at me. Right out of the gate, the first short is amazing. Sonny's Edge from director Dave Wilson depicts this gorgeous but terrifying nightmare world of mysterious characters controlling rampaging monsters in Roman-style gladiatorial combat. The short's erotic, it's vicious, this one will definitely grab your attention. While most of the shorts in Love, Death, and Robots are made by different directors, this collection does include 3 shorts by filmmakers Victor Maldonado and Alfredo Torres, the best of which, in my opinion, was the comedy 3 Robots. And in that short, you see 3 robots in the distant future exploring a post-apocalyptic world, and they're trying to understand our culture. And I'm relieved that there were so many comedies thrown in there, because some of these shorts are incredibly bleak, incredibly dark, incredibly violent, and you need a little comedy just to add some peaks and valleys to the experience. But The Witness by Alberto Mielgo is a strong contender for my favorite of all. The story follows this beautiful dancer who works in a strip club, and she's on the run from a man who may have murdered what appears to be her doppelganger. Now, you should put the kids to bed before watching that one. There's a scene in a sex club that goes all the way up to 11, but that one definitely made a strong impact on me. Frank Balson's Suits was a pretty cool one as well, and it features this epic battle, much like the end of Avengers Infinity War. And if you're a vampire fan, Owen Sullivan's Sucker of Souls introduces a beautiful new twist on a classic vampire story. But Beyond the Aquila Rift was something special. 4 filmmakers brought this one to life. Leon Burrell, Dominique Boyden, Remy Kozira, and Maxime Loueri. I know I'm butchering all their names, but this was another strong contender for my favorite of the bunch. The story deals with a ship that's traveling through this rift that operates like a wormhole, and the ship ends up in the wrong location. Once they arrive, the captain encounters a former lover who's being purposefully vague about how they got there, but soon this edgy erotic thriller transforms into one of the most terrifying sci-fi horror stories imaginable. So I have to say that Beyond the Aquila Rift gets my highest possible recommendation. If you were trying to convince somebody to watch this entire collection, this might be a good one to start with. I feel like I'm starting to repeat myself with so much praise, but Oliver Thomas's Good Hunting is another strong contender for the best film in the collection. While I was initially thrown by its animation style that at first looked like a nod to traditional 2D Disney movies, the film quickly shattered that preconceived notion with a brilliant love story about a man who falls in love with a supernatural creature who's gradually losing her powers due to the rapid evolution of technology all around them. I should warn you that this film is arguably the most disturbing of the bunch and possibly the most graphic sexually, but it's well worth a look, and the film eventually evolves into this incredibly satisfying tale of revenge. Shapeshifters by Gabriele Pennacchioli, if I'm saying that correctly, is another standout. We see a world where shape-shifting lycanthropes are basically being used as secret weapons on both sides of the war against the Taliban in Afghanistan. And these lycanthropes, they're hated and despised by most humans, but they're incredibly useful in that they can see at night, they're very fast, they heal from most bullet wounds. When trying to lure out a sniper, they basically will send a werewolf out in front, he'll let himself get shot a few times, he'll be able to see where the sniper is, then he can call in the strike to take him out. But all hell breaks loose when an American werewolf gets the scent of a werewolf on the other side, leading to one of the most horrific battles you will ever see. It's bloody, it's nasty. If you're a fan of werewolves, it's absolutely essential viewing. But if you're more of a fan of gritty sci-fi with a lot of realism, John Yin's Helping Hand is a brilliant short about problem solving when facing certain death. And I think that's one of the things that really makes this whole anthology work so well, is that the variety of storytelling and the variety of styles, it cannot be overstated. But now we've arrived at the short that I think is an outright masterpiece, Robert Valley's Zima Blue. Utterly unique in style, the short presents the gradual transformation of an artist as their work evolves from murals to installations on a planetary scale. The artist himself has undergone body modifications that allow him to survive in the most punishing environments in space, all of which are crucial stages in building toward his final masterwork, which I will not spoil at this time. The Academy will likely say that this film is not eligible for Best Animated Short due to not being released theatrically, but it definitely deserves that award. The big surprise for me is that the only real outright miss, in my opinion, is the short directed by Tim Miller himself. I love Tim Miller's work. I saw Deadpool 3 times in the theater, and the trailer that he created for DC Universe Online is positively jaw-dropping. But this short, which features Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Topher Grace, sadly did nothing for me. Luckily, the anthology does finish strong with The Secret War by Istvan Zorkovsky, if I'm saying that correctly. It's another photorealistic action story, but it features Russian soldiers going up against a supernatural threat that their own side has unwittingly released, thinking that it might be a secret weapon. So overall, I absolutely love watching this, but it was strange to me at the end how the movie just stops. There's no conclusion, there's no little bow to give the film a feeling of finality. It just takes you into the next movie, which was, for me, Triple Frontier, which I loved, but is totally unrelated. At a bare minimum, the film should have shown highlights from other films and mentioned the directors' names, just to make the whole experience feel complete or to give you a sense that you're coming in for a safe landing. That said, I can't really complain. I was blown away by so many of these films, and I will definitely be pushing every animation fan I know to sit back and let this wild collection just blow their minds. I'm always bewildered by so many people out there who love to hate on Netflix, and they seem mostly to resent the changes that Netflix is bringing to the industry, but all I care about is the final product, irrespective of where I find it or where I see it. I guarantee you that no big budget animated film from any of the big studios this year will have even a fraction of this film's creativity and imagination. Without question, this is the animation event of the year, and I imagine that its reputation will only grow over time. So I think that's all I got for now, but thanks so much for watching my review. I really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. If you've not seen Heavy Metal nor Love, Death, and Robots, definitely check out both. You'll absolutely have a blast. But if you want to talk more about mature, adult, inappropriate animation, definitely give me a shout on Twitter at Colbrax. There's a link in the description below. But I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their weekend, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.